Hey there, Wargamers, Justin Paint here, and today, let's talk about some Battletech units that you like to use. I'd like to welcome you guys back to the channel again today, and again, apologize for not having the face cam up. Again, that as I may have mentioned in a previous video, depending on the order that these go out, that video camera that I use is currently at work. I only have the one, so sometimes I try and borrow equipment from work when I can. But hopefully we'll have more rambling talk videos, paint videos, and tutorial, or not just tutorials, battle reports here in the near future. But for today, I've just wrapped up talking about zenithal highlighting and preparing a miniature, and then one example of what you could do with that. And because it was an UrbanMech, little old herbs, that got me thinking about units that I like to use regardless of how stupid they might look, or if they have a nostalgia feel or some type of vibe that makes me want to use them, not just the stats. So I want to talk about some of these and hopefully get a discussion going, and maybe have you guys sign off in the comments below about some of the things that you like. So first and foremost, let's get zoomed in here and start talking about some of the things that I have on the table. We'll move some of these around, and we'll start with old herbs here. This is a good example, I think, of a unit that the community either loves or hates, or loves to hate, or hates to love it. And it's one of those that, like, whenever I have an excuse to put one on the table, the points aren't super crazy, its stats aren't particularly great, it's just kind of there, and it's for the lulz. And if it hits somebody and does a damage, it's like a victory. It's like it feels like you gained a victory point in the game because your UrbanMech did something. And if your UrbanMech actually like crits somebody, takes them out, like with his AC, insert whatever AC weapon, it feels good, right? But it's not a unit that you're pulling out because it's competitive in general. I think in general you pull out the UrbanMech because it's a point filler, or it's for the lulz, or a little bit of both. So this is one that's, because I was working on this fella, that I wanted to pull out and talk about, because I think this is particularly interesting. And I'd be curious to know if you guys have units like this that are kind of derpy, goofy, cute, that you pull out. Like, you're not so worried about the competitive side, the stats. You're more worried about minis that you like and you want to put on the table. Now, some of the ones that I'll show you here and talk about are various degrees of good or bad, or somewhere in between, but I love them just the same, right? So here's a good example of this. This guy right here, I like to pull him out from time to time. Now, this one's got a little bit of a story because I painted him live on stream, and one of my viewers said that he would love to pilot it. Now, it looked a lot better at one point, and then I messed him up. But we kept him. We left him the same way. We didn't change anything. And I called him Captain Dumpster Fire, or call sign Dumpster Fire. And this guy chimed in, and he goes, I'll pilot that. That'll be me. So I've used him in a battle report or two. Actually, it might have been a live stream I did 2 years ago. Still called it Captain Dumpster Fire in his honor, and he's still there. I didn't repaint him and base him. He's just the way that he was. Now, there's arguably better looking plastic Atlas out. I've got a metal Atlas as well, another metal one that is painted. I don't have it at my desk right now to grab, but there's something about even the other variant, because I've got this guy and the one other metal one that looks different. There's something about it. The other metal one is painted much better than this one, but there's something about that old school vibe, right? That look. Now, the Atlas is the Atlas. The Atlas is an Atlas. Like, they blow stuff up. They got a lot of HP. They're slow, easy to hit, but they blow stuff up, right? Just big, tanky, lumbering behemoths. So they do their job, as so far as that's what an Atlas is expected to do. But there's probably better options in the assault class. Hell, there's probably better options to bring a variety of other weight class mechs at the same tonnage or point values, combined, than just one Atlas, depending on what your support structure is like for your miniatures. But I find myself gravitating towards some of these mechs because the nostalgia vibe. Like, this doesn't look as good as some of the new ones, but I wanted it anyway. I went out and specifically bought that other metal Atlas because I thought the sculpt was cool. And as we transition to the next mech here, I'll show a good example of that, because I did the same thing for this other mech too. But this reminds me of what it was like to be a kid, the box art, the games, the things that got me excited for sci-fi. And even though it doesn't look as good, I want to play with it. I want to look at it. And I've got a nice plastic Atlas too. I've painted up. I'll play with that too. But like, there's some units I gravitate towards where I'm just like, you know what? This one feels good. You know, and this one also has a little bit of a story behind it because I screwed up painting it. I made a mistake. We finished it anyway and moved on. But it's got a special place in my heart insofar as, like, I feel good looking at it. And it's a dumbass looking mech, to be honest with you. Like, paint job wise, like, my UrbanMech probably looks better, right? You know, but there's something about this Atlas. It just, like, it resonates with me. And I imagine that if you're newer to the hobby and to wargaming, to Battletech specifically, you may not have stories like this, or maybe you do. Or maybe you have stuff like that for 40K, if you played Warhammer. Maybe you've got an old school pewter mini from back in the day. I used to do this too. Back when I started, I was buying all the pewter HQs, and certain ones like really, you know, had a place in my heart as well. So maybe you get that feeling for different games. But for you guys who have those kinds of feelings with Battletech, do you have units that, regardless of the way they looked, regardless of the sculpt, regardless of the stats, you want to play with it? Or when you look at it, it makes you happy? This is one of those mechs for me. It's a bittersweet memory, but it's fun, right? And I like it. It makes me happy. I can't explain it completely. Now, in terms of mechs that I've collected that have better versions of plastic, but have a look or a aesthetic to them that I really like, here we go. I got this Battlemaster. I've got the plastic Battlemaster. I've got a couple of them. And I specifically picked this one up because I thought it was adorable. It's goofy, it's old school sci-fi looking, and it's awesome. Like, it's just plain, it's awesome. Oh, his little base is chipped. But I look at it and I get the same feel that I got from that Atlas. And let me see, I think I've got a plastic one sitting here. I should. Nope, that's the Wolverine. Oh, there he is. Here you go. So you could see, you know, sculpt on this one's bigger and beefier, and it looks like the new box art, but there's something about this one that's got that, like, old school retro sci-fi. And I don't want this. I don't want this for all of my minis, you know, right? It's select ones, but when I see them, I'm like, yo, I want one of that. Now, I've got multiple Battlemasters, but only one of this one. And I bought them because I specifically wanted this look, this vibe, this retro feel, this, like, what was at one point in the Battletech universe, or the Battletech production line of minis. This was really good at one time, right? Now, I still think it's got merit for what it is because of why I like it. There's better sculpts out, arguably, right? But at the time when this came out, someone saw this and they were like, yo, that's the most badass mech ever. You know, some young kid, you know, 20 years ago or whenever this mech came out, and they had to buy it, right? And they wanted it, or they begged their dad to get it for them, or their mom, or whoever, you know what I mean? Like, that vibe. So it's almost a vicarious feeling where I look at these old mechs and I remember as a kid, I look back now as an adult thinking about how I might have been as a kid if I was exposed to this stuff sooner. And it kind of, I start to think about those feelings that people had when they first saw these. And it makes me feel, you know, good. There's some kind of kindling there of, like, an inner childhood. You know, it makes me feel, I guess, young again, or excited about minis, right? And it's just a Battlemaster. It's a metal, goofy looking Battlemaster, but something about it, I love it. And it's cool. You know, and if you've made it this far into this video of me rambling, and you don't get this feeling from minis, and only the stats apply to you, and you don't care about the aesthetics or anything else, like, that's a little sad, if I'm honest. I hope that if those statements apply to you, that you find some meaning, some interest, some worth in your minis beyond just the impact they can have for you on the tabletop, because there's such a wonderful world of minis, and not just the Battletech universe alone, but out there in general. There's so many good looking minis that might, you know, resonate with you. But I hope that you find something in this universe or another that you really enjoy the beyond the stats, because, like, I don't know what I would do. Half my collection would evaporate overnight probably if I only cared about the stats, right? And I'm a firm believer that if you're going to spend the time painting a mini and playing with a mini, you should like that mini. Now, that's not always true. I've got minis I painted that I think look stupid. Like, I've got one here. It's a fine mini, like, and it does what it does, but I'm not a big fan of the Dasher. Personally, I think it's kind of goofy. And I say that, and there's probably somebody in the video right now in the comments just clickety-clacking away about how stupid I am for not liking the Dasher, and that's okay, right? at KarnitskyCon, I remember Randall talking about a variant of this that's coming with all the lasers on it. You know, laser vomit runs up behind you, blaps you. That's cool. For me, the aesthetic just, it's not, I just don't care. But I have painted it for my forces, but this one doesn't resonate with me quite as much. You know what I mean? Even though I know there are variants that are good, but you grab this guy, and I'm just like, hey, yeah, look at him. It just makes me happy, right? So I do hope that if you've never considered it, make it maybe a mission. If you're still listening, make it a mission to look at your collection and see if there's anything that you look at and you go, you know what? I haven't played with that mini in a while. Why haven't I? Is it only the stats? Did I have fun painting it? Did my friend gift it to me? Did my friend paint it for me? What can I do to encourage myself to put this on the tabletop and forge a fun story, a fun narrative? One of the things that I did a while back, I think it's a battle report that never aired. I was playing with a buddy of mine, Joe, and I called this guy, oh God, what was he? It wasn't like constable, it wasn't like mayor or precept or something, but it was like a planetary governor, Bishop Steiner. That's what I called him. From the guy from the Facebook group who does a whole bunch of line art, who posts. I did that, and I made this dude like gunnery skill 2, and he only had like 1 or 2 damage, and he couldn't move and do anything, but like, I was hop, 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 every turn, just shooting at something and doing consistent damage. And I'm pretty sure I killed something. It might have been with a critical effect, but I did kill something, and I was really excited and jazzed. And it was just the funs, the lulz. It's the UrbanMech. It was fun. It's goofy. I like it. And a guy from the community that, like, I feel like I've seen talk about UrbanMechs, or at least his art, like, I thought it was fun to, like, say that my mercenary forces were hired by this planetary governor or leader, this, you know, this Prince Bishop Steiner guy in his UrbanMech who's taking the field, and he's got, like, ultra good tech in it, and he's got his really good gunnery skill, and he's in an UrbanMech. And he's being, like, escorted by Wolf's Dragoons, but he's the big dog on campus with the UrbanMech, right? It's that kind of story where, like, no one fields an UrbanMech because they're trying to win the game with it. You know, it's either because they got a point filler or they just want to field an UrbanMech, or both. And for me, it was a little bit of both, and I was like, let's do it for the lulz and have something really funny. And that's what I did, because it's an UrbanMech. So those are the things. I would challenge you to try and do that with your collection. If you find that you're playing with a small selection of your minis and not others, but you have more, try other ones and see if you could forge fun stories for those. And if you do have more minis and you only have certain ones painted because they're good, try and branch out and paint other stuff you like. You've got those minis, why not, right? So one of the other, moving on, looking at the other minis that I have that I really like, I've got quite a few Griffins. And like this one, it's so badass. Like, look at this. Like, hang on, let me grab the regular Griffin, right? So we got the plastic Griffin, and there's multiple variants of the metal one, but like, come on, like, this is cool, it's a Griffin, but this is cool. Like, who doesn't think that's, I mean, someone in the channel or the comments probably doesn't, but like, I could sculpt it. It's got a nice boxy look to it, which I thought was neat. And it's big, it's grandiose. Like, this guy looks a little small comparatively. Again, he's fine. I like him. I've got several of them. But, like, this was so cool. I saw this model, and I didn't realize how much, like, articulation I was going to be able to do with the Ironman's metal on this one. And it was a breath of fresh air. It was nice. It's even came with the pewter antennas, which you can add those on, you know, later as a mod for minis who don't have antennas. But he had it, and these little bunny ears. Like, it's just cute. It's cool. And it's a Griffin. Now, I find this is one of the variants, or one of the models that, like, I use very frequently. This one and the next one I'll show you. I use this a lot. It's reasonably point cost, reasonably effective, and I like the way it looks. And I don't think it's the best mech in the world. I don't think it's the worst. Certainly think there are probably better options at my disposal at the point level and weight class that he is in. But I just like the way it looks. And I bet this is one that there are probably quite a few people who would agree, because it's a Griffin, and the Griffin is one of those classic mechs, right? Like, if you grew up with Battletech, you probably like the Griffin, you know what I mean? Or the Warhammer, the Marauder, the Shadowhawk, the classics, right? And this is one of those. But I feel like there might be other options in the rules, stat-wise, that you could field that in Alpha Strike. I don't know anything about Classic, but in Alpha Strike, I feel like there's stuff that you could field that's better than this. But I put a Griffin in almost every one of my armies. Probably has a Griffin. A Griffin or a Shadowhawk, or both. And it's because I like the models, and they're really cool, and I like them. But I feel like I don't feel like they particularly do a lot of damage. I just enjoy them. And I think that's kind of the point of the ramble here in the video, is to encourage you guys to play with units that you like, not just units that win, especially units that you want to paint. Because painting could be a little bit of a chore, so anything we could do to like make that not a chore. And now we've got the other guy I was talking about, the partner in crime to my Griffin, my Shadowhawk. Again, I've got a bunch of them. It's another one of those, like when I field them, the variants I use usually are not super expensive. They don't do a lot of damage. They're just kind of there because I want to put it on the table. And I like the metal one a lot better because you got articulation, and the barrel, it is more substantial. I don't know if I can get access to my plastic one easily here. I cannot. I don't even know where that thing is at. Anyway, sorry. The plastic one's like a little barrel tip's just it's a little weak. The metal one's just really nice. So this is one of the times where the metal version that looks almost identical to it, because there's a metal one that looks like this too. It's the standard or the newer variant. But with the Shadowhawk one in particular, being able to pose it and the barrel, it's a win-win for that. And I love the model. This is one of those that checks a lot of the boxes. It's is it anthropomorphic? Is that right? I don't know. Not anthropomorphic. It's humanoid and bipedal. So like it's walking on the two legs. It's got the fists. It's a Gundam basically, right? Or that type of thing, or you know, the robots or the mechs from Robotech or Macross or Battletech. It's got that style, right? Pacific Rim look. There's certain mecha things I don't like. This is a vibe that I do. I love that look, which applies to a lot of Battletech, but like, he's so cool. And one of my earliest memories as a kid playing video games, once I started paying attention, one of my favorite RPGs, I can't say earliest memories because I wasn't like a little kid, but one of my earliest RPG memories was playing Xenogears. And you had what basically in that game were kind of like Gundams. For the life of me, I cannot remember what they called them. I don't think it was actually Gears. It wasn't Wanzers, was it? That might be Front Mission. It might have been Gears. I don't know. But they had basically this kind of thing, and I always grew up with that, playing that game, and I've enjoyed mechs since. I just didn't get into Battletech until I was an adult. It was hard to find people. And that leads me to the last mech that I have on my desk here. And I hope you guys are taking notes about things you want to type about in the comments, or minis you want to pull out to look at to formulate a conversation. Because the point of this video is me to encourage conversation, encourage thought, encourage you to look at your collection from a non-competitive perspective and think about the memories you forged, the memories and stories you would like to forge, and maybe new minis you'd want to paint. What does your collection of your minis mean to you beyond just painting, beyond just the stats and throwing them on the table? Like what's beneath the surface? So here's one of my favorites. This mech has a little bit of a story too. One of my friends sent it to me. It was in multiple pieces, and it's one of the mechs he's had for a long time, and I painted it up. And when I play, I always imagine he's piloting it. He sent me some of my first Battletech minis when I got into it, right before the plastics. Actually, it might have been before the Kickstarter, but after Game Armor Combat he sent them. But this is a good example of me liking an old school, like retro vibe, the Mad Dog, the Vulture. Like, this is one of my favorite mechs, and it's got that Battletech look. It's not the poster child, because that's the Timberwolf, right? Like, everyone knows what a Timberwolf or a Mad Cat is, but this guy's had his time. He's been around, he's been on posters, he's been in games. But this is one of those examples where, like, I've got the new one. I like the new one. It's beefy, it's strong, it looks good, right? But something about that old one too. It's got the nostalgia vibe. I like it. The point level on the variants I like to run on this are like 33 points, and they do 3 damage across the board. Not a lot of damage, not a lot of points, not particularly checking all the boxes for being badass, but it's badass to me because of what it is. So I like to put it on the table. I like to play with those variants, and I want an excuse to play with a Mad Dog. And if I play Wolf's Dragoons and I'm not playing my newest stuff I've painted, which right now is, I've got a bunch of Dark Age stuff, so like my current Vulture here has been sidelined for that era. But I like to pull this guy out. I like to play with him. And he means something to me. Like, it's got a cool story, a cool paint scheme. It's got a nostalgia vibe. So do you have mechs like this? Do you have units? And it doesn't just have to be Battletech. Are you a 40K player? Do you have stories like that? Do you have perhaps a D&D mini that's running around that means something to you? What does it represent? Was it a mini you got as a kid and you painted and you kept it all this time for an ongoing campaign? Was it a character mini that you painted and perhaps you had a heroic sacrifice, you've kept it ever since, and that mini, when you look at it, has a story? What do your minis say to you? What narratives have you forged with them that you, over the years, may have started to forget about, right? And I think that's important to consider because right now, in the miniatures wargame world, there's so much focus now on the tournament scene, the win at all costs, the stomp someone into the dirt mentality, that people forget what minis are. And that's a blanket statement, I'm aware. There are people who don't go to tournaments, and I get it, but perhaps it's the vocal minority, I don't know. But I think people have forgotten about forging the narrative, and I know that's a statement from Games Workshop, but Games Workshop too, they lost me as a customer, based on some of the things that they have done. And I was a longtime customer and I loved my minis. I loved the lore and I couldn't keep up. And their shift from forging a narrative in the story of what these battles mean, that changed, right? And I think that it's worth shining a light on that for people and trying at the very least to showcase a variety of the minis that I like, why I like them, some of the stories behind them, and perhaps see if you've got some stories with your minis that you'd like to share with us. That being said, folks, I think I've rambled enough. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please sign up in the comments below. Let me know about your minis, your happy stories from your wargaming adventures. Share with us, share with the community. As always, if you enjoyed this, hit that like, subscribe button. Hopefully you guys will come back and enjoy some videos that are coming in. We'll have some battle reports, hopefully, and some more tutorials coming up soon. And the tutorials will be sponsored by Fortress Miniatures and Games. We'll have some speed paints that we'll be working on in the near future. On that note, folks, again, I've rambled enough. It's time to sign off. As always, keep painting your models, keep rolling those dice, and I will catch you guys next time.